Welcome, everybody. I thank you for coming, and I'm Gary DeVaney. I have the God Murders website. This is a new entry on the website, and it's made it over 2 million hits this year. I think this contributed to it pretty well. I hope you enjoy it. It's I just ask that everybody attempt to put on critical mind tonight. In other words, ask questions to yourself about what you're seeing. Ask what makes sense and so forth, because if you're going to go to the faith route, this will bypass you. When people read, especially people of faith, they read the Bible, this stuff doesn't bounce off the page. They just skim right over it. They don't see it. It has no impact. And that's what this is about, to emphasize and point out these controversial chapters and verses. I would submit this, and it's a big one, that if you knew the content of the God Murders website, you would know more than 90, you would know the controversial chapter and verses of the Bible more than 99% of clergy throughout the world. Even if those clergy knew it, they wouldn't talk about it. That's how slim this stuff is as far as to be able to know it. There's nobody you could debate that you can't use chapter and verse to win a debate, because if they're going to defend those chapters and verses, and when you see what these chapters and verses say, you know, it's a slam dunk in that respect. And being kind. Joe here last week with Raoul, for you who were here, they stood up here and they had a debate, and boy, they got along fine before, during, and after. They both held their, the poise. They discussed things. It was friendly. This is a safe place. This organization is a safe place. If you got something you want to talk about, bring it up here and have the room, and so forth. Tonight this is going to be on YouTube. That camera's on me. This camera's on the screen. We're going to have a question and answer period toward the end of it. It's going to be edited, and Dave Dittman, most of you know him. He produced one of my segments before. He set all this up today with Diane. She's my technician. And he went to work. He's a bartender. But he's going to put this on YouTube, so whatever we do tonight, people who if you want other people to see it, just go to YouTube and see it. As far as the organization here, I became, it's $19 a month for a regular membership. I just paid like $250 a while back, a few weeks ago, because I've been around here for a year now, just paying here and there a few bucks. And I have to say this is worthwhile. If you as an individual have something you'd like to bring together, like Gail, you've got things you like to talk about with certain groups, this is a place you can have these people come, and you can have your organized meetings. And they don't charge anything normally for like a small meeting that you're conducting. They donate as they choose, okay? So you have a group or two that you like to discuss. Bob, her husband here, is a nuclear physicist, Dr. Bob. There's people in this room. Back there's a gentleman that last week, he gave me a sheet of paper with all these critical chapters and verses that he's been studying. Critical mind is there, folks, and all you have to do is just share, not get mad at each other. There's nothing to be mad about. If it exists, if it's chapter and verse, the only thing you can do, in my case, is that, Gary, you're wrong, it doesn't say that. Anytime you see something I have written wrong, and I make mistakes, let me know. If it's valid, I'll correct it, and I will thank you so much for your input. Did Jesus Christ lie? Ladies and gentlemen, as a behavioral therapist, I don't know of anything that's a higher form of thought than a question. Do you know of anything? Knowledge is not a high form of thought. That's the easiest thing. Believing is absurd most of the time, so it's not a high form of thought. Thinking, the highest form of thought is the question. What is critical mind made of? Questions. If you have the capacity to question, you have a critical mind. Activate it when it comes to things concerning reality, and also things that we deal with each other with and so forth. Don't believe this about that. Find out. Carl Sagan, on his deathbed, they came to Carl and said, Carl, it's getting close. Are you afraid? Do you believe? And Carl, with all his charm, as weak as he was, gave that famous smile of his and said, I have always preferred to know. This is the kind of appeal I like for you to have when you're dealing with topics of belief and faith. When a mindset believer pushes a lie, documented facts become very threatening to them. Facts and beliefs don't get along too well. Stephen King said, the trust of an innocent is the liar's most useful tool. Don't Christians, Jews, and Muslims all worship the same one God of Abraham? Now, this is something I've tried to ask Joe last week. I don't think we got a chance to talk about it, but a lot of Christians come unglued when they think that we're worshiping the same God that Allah is. It's the same one God of Abraham. But no, they somehow have a little thing about that. Ask any rabbi, and it's his book, the rabbi's book. The Old Testament is not the Christian's book per se, it's the rabbi's book. And ask any imam. Imam is the high political factor. Actually, Islam has no clergy, folks. Shocking. All those imams and ayatollahs and everything, they're religious leaders, but there's no clergy per se. They are also the political leaders. Can you explain why Jews and Muslims do not worship Jesus Christ as God? Now, before thinking blasphemy, please have the courage to check out these particular selected chapter and verses. John 19:36, John the Baptist baptized Jesus Christ, claiming twice not to know Jesus. The reason I'm sitting, and that's up there, is because I'm not the topic. You don't need to focus on me. That's what's going to you're going to take home or not. And anytime you want a refresher, just go to my website. Boom, you'll see it. And let me tell you up front tonight, the ones you see here tonight not even represent a fourth of what's on the website concerning this very topic. So Jesus Christ was John the Baptist's cousin. Did John lie? Matthew 11:12-14. Jesus said John the Baptist is Elijah. That's the Catholic version, folks. In the King James, it's called Elias. Same person. Again, King James and Catholics have a little difference in nomenclature, but the stories are exactly the same. What happens are exactly the same. Again, another big myth that all these Bibles have different things they say. No, the stories are the same. John the Baptist said he was not Elijah or Elias. Now, which one lied? Did John the Baptist lie? Or did Jesus lie? Providing one of them didn't tell the truth. Do you acknowledge and confirm that according to these two chapters, Bible and verses, that one of them had to say a falsehood? Diane, why don't you come up here and work the mouse and stick with me on the stuff? She's responsible for putting this stuff together too. And she's done a pretty good job with all the stuff I've done over the years. Okay. 1 John 2:15. Jesus Christ said, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man does love the world, the love of the Father, God, is not in him." Can you imagine saying that? You're not to love anything. Nothing in the world, and so forth, according to this chapter and verse. Would you agree? Mark 12:31 said, Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Now, does anything jump off the page as far as what they call a contradiction? Jesus says, love not the world. Then he says, love your neighbor as yourself. In which chapter and verse did Jesus Christ lie, folks? You can't have it both ways, as much as you'd like to through something called faith. No. Critical mind doesn't deal with faith. Scientists don't deal with faith. Do they, Bob? They don't deal with faith. John 3:13, Jesus says, no one has gone up to heaven except the one who has come down from heaven, the Son of Man. Who's the Son of Man? Jesus Christ. He's talking about himself. But, folks, when Jesus said this, Jesus himself was still alive and had not yet gone up to heaven. If Jesus himself is the only one, according to his own words, to have gone to heaven, doesn't that contradict and eliminate Enoch going up to heaven in Genesis 5:22, and Elijah's going up to heaven in a whirlwind in 2 Kings 2:11, and angels going up and down Jacob's ladder to and from heaven in Genesis 28. So, did Jesus Christ utter another falsehood here? If the biblical scribes misquoted Jesus, did Jesus Christ really exist as depicted? Or did Jesus Christ get caught in another documented lie? John 4:22, Jesus said, you people worship what you do not understand. Well, that's an understatement for most religious people. We worship what we understand because salvation is of the what? Mel? Jews, right? Mel is probably the most knowledgeable Jewish man in this room. He's head of the humanists of the nation at one point, and we have him here with us. Salvation, Jesus said, is what? Of the Jews. And you see KJV, that means the King James Version. Matthew 5:28, 22-28. A Canaanite, which is a Gentile, she's not a Jew, a Canaanite woman asked Jesus to heal her daughter. Remember this story, folks? You've heard it in Sunday school. Jesus ignored her. Sometimes you read that part and it just doesn't register, does it? Just didn't jump off the page. His disciples asked Jesus to send her away. Oh, I never remember that. I didn't remember it. All I remember is that Jesus healed the daughter, right? That's what believers remember. None of this other stuff. So Matthew 15:24 says, Jesus replied to the woman that he was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. Who is that? The Jews. They are the last sheep of Israel. Nobody else. Jesus said he only came for the Jews. Jesus then said, it is not right to take food of the children and throw it to the dogs. What a nice thing to say to you when you're starving and you're got a daughter you want to have healed. No, it didn't register when I read it. She appealed to Jesus, please, Lord, even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from the master's table. You remember that part, I think, right? Jesus then, through embarrassment and everything else, and she kind of matched him in a sense with her logic and her appeal, he did heal her daughter. Now, does this documented model of Jesus Christ require non-Jews to beg Jesus like groveling, begging dogs to save them? You notice non-Jews. Because Jesus only came for the Jews, folks. He didn't open it up to the Gentiles. He never opened it up to the Gentiles. Paul did, and they confuse them. Paul opened it up to the Gentiles. Not Jesus, not Peter, none of the apostles. Jesus came only for the Jews.